I have to say, my number one priority would be to try and institute a program that would start bringing our troops home at the earliest possible time. While we have many troubles in the Middle East that we're dealing with and that they continue to deal with and have for 500 years, I just don't see the point of keeping our troops over there long term without a clear objective.
I think we need a very tough stance on foreign policy. We need to stop apologizing for being the world's only superpower. We should not be afraid. We should not be afraid to use the term Islamic extremist. We should not be afraid to call the war on terror exactly that, the war on terror. We should stop giving our enemies the rights of U.S. citizens, and we should give the troops all the power, the ability they need, all the support they need to get the job done and get it done as quickly as possible.
Well, I've lived and served throughout the world in the military, including 2 tours in the Middle East, and I can tell you from someone who's been there, who's been in harm's way, I understand where we need to be, and I think we need to shift from a military role to a more diplomatic role. We need to work at the true drivers of conflict in the world. What I've seen firsthand throughout the developing world: poverty, lack of education, inequality, corruption, bad governance, and famine. Once we start addressing those factors, we will begin to see the benefits of a more peaceful world.
Mr. Russell, you get the next question. Do you believe the Constitution is being upheld in recent congressional decisions?
No. I think specifically when we look at this health care bill, as I addressed earlier, for the first time in our history we have a government requiring citizens to buy a particular product in order to remain citizens in good standing in this nation. Otherwise they will be penalized through additional taxes and penalties. It's a job killer. And when we look at many of the other issues that they are going, particularly with regard to the granting of constitutional rights to enemy combatants captured on the battlefield, that is absolutely not the intent of the Constitution nor our founding fathers. And I do believe my time is up, so thank you very much.
I addressed this a little bit on the health care bill issue as well, and I have to agree with my Republican colleagues here that I really do not think in some aspects our Constitution is being upheld. I think it's ridiculous that we give enemy combatants rights under our Constitution to try and triumph here on our own soil.
I think in many instances the Constitution is being trampled by our own elected officials. I think that our founding fathers created this Constitution for a very good reason. That is what this country is founded on, and that's what we need to get back to if this country is to survive.
I actually do believe that recent legislation has been consistent with our Constitution. Having been throughout the world and seen some really, truly upsetting nations throughout the world where they don't even have a Constitution or laws, doesn't in any way compare in this country. Yes, what we've been doing recently is consistent with the United States Constitution.
And Mr. Prince.
Well, I think elected officials are doing their job in upholding the Constitution, although I do agree about the enemy combatants being brought on U.S. soil to be tried. I don't think that's correct, I don't think that's right, and I don't think we should do it.
Next question goes to you, Mr. Mackel. Who are your political role models? Who do you believe you will be most like?
I said I think from 25 years ago I tried to emulate what I saw in Jack Murtha, and I think that that's a heck of a role model to try and live up to. I think that I have a lot of respect for John McCain, and I think that he's in a terribly difficult position right now in his current election, but I think the way that he has handled himself over the past 30 years that I've been watching him is an individual that I respect a lot. I think that Ronald Reagan was another great communicator that was actually the first president that I ever voted for in 1980 when I was in the military. So I think someone who moves more to the center, who is more cooperative than disruptive, would be an individual that I would try and emulate.
Mr. Burns.
I have a great deal of respect for our first president, George Washington. Here's a man who literally could have been king after winning the Revolutionary War and reluctantly accepted the position of President of the United States.
I also have a great deal of respect, of course, for the great communicator Ronald Reagan, a wonderful conservative that enjoyed support from both parties.
I most respect the bold leadership and compassion of President Kennedy.
Well, having worked with him for 16 years and volunteered for him, Jack Murtha's not only my role model but my hero, and I hope to take that the passion that he had for the people in this district, for the people of Western Pennsylvania, and from what I learned about taking care of our veterans and our military out of that office forward to Congress.
My three primary heroes, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and of course Ronald Reagan. The reason why I so much admire each of these men is because they stood so tough when times were tough. When they stood up against an enemy, they stayed strong, they stayed true to their values and their principles. And they never lost sight of the goal, no matter how tough things got. Whether we talk about Washington at Valley Forge, Lincoln following Gettysburg, and of course Ronald Reagan at the height of the Cold War.
Mr. Burns, the next question goes to you. What distinguishes you from your opponents, both within your party and opposing party, as a candidate of choice to serve the people of the 12th district?
Well, I grew up here in the district, graduated from high school here in Johnstown. I went to college in Indiana, and I still live in this district. I managed to start a business in 1992, and I struggled. It was not an instant success. But I understand the burdens that the government places on a small and growing business. And I managed to persevere, and ultimately we had over 400 employees. And this isn't my dream job. This isn't something I've always wanted to do. But I can tell you that I feel a sense of responsibility to do whatever I can to help turn this country around. In fact, I believe all of us have a responsibility to do whatever we can. When you look at our founding fathers, they gave up their lives, they gave up their fortunes to give birth to this great nation. The least I can do is give my time and my energy to try and save it.
I'm a veteran with a significant amount of overseas experience. I have a significant amount of international business development experience throughout the world, which can position us uniquely to compete and thrive in the global economy. I come from a younger generation. I found that my candidacy has bridged the generational gap, and I think we need to energize the youth in our region across all parties. And also I have a significant amount of federal experience for a federal job.
I bring a wealth of experience I can bring a wealth of experience to Congress of what I was doing in this district for the last 10 years, working for Mr. Murtha, bringing agencies and companies in the private sector and economic development agencies together to bring jobs. That's why I have a jobs plan. I'm separate from the rest of the candidates because I've put forth a plan that talks about small business, energy, and overseas.
Well, in terms of looking for the candidate who will truly fight for this district, I'm the only candidate who got into this race when it was a matter of principle, not a matter of opportunity. I am the only candidate, even though I wasn't born and raised here, who stood up for a local son, a Haditha Marine from Cannonsburg, when his own congressman, an entrenched 34-year incumbent, threw him under the bus and called him a cold-blooded murderer. I am the only candidate who has stayed in this race in spite of being threatened by that sitting congressman's office. And I am the only candidate who is standing strong against his own party's leadership and letting them know that this is an election, not a selection.
What distinguishes me from the other candidates here is that I've spent the last 10 years of my life studying, practicing, and teaching the legal system of this country. And while I know everybody loves to hate attorneys, there's nobody that I'd rather be sitting across the desk from when I'm in trouble than Gunnar Gleason. 40% of the people in Washington and Congress are attorneys, and I think I understand the language better than anybody here that they speak on Capitol Hill.